but reports coming from the region suggest that the sides accuse each other for violating the ceasefire. So
I think they both violated it.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm not sure they did it intentionally. They couldn't rein people back. I don't like the fact that Israel went out this morning at all, and I'm going to see if I can stop it. So as soon as I get away from you, I'm going to see if I can stop it, okay?
Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Now, ever since 2020, I'm absolutely used to politicians horrifying me. Especially for a person that understands a little bit of economics. The news media is like a horror show. Like, for instance, you get the pandemic. The government decides to shut down the economy. They also decide to print money like crazy. And so you start to wonder, it's like, okay, how high are my taxes going to go up and how bad is the inflation going to be? And so the answer was like, it's going to be pretty bad. Like, the price of eggs, like, it's going to be more reasonable to buy a jewel of the desert than to buy a cardboard of eggs. That's pretty much how it went. At the level where the person with the goose that lays golden eggs is not a novelty anymore because normal eggs will cost just as much. And so I was like, okay, well, I mean, that happened. What can I do? You know, I'll just adapt, just limit my spending. And then you see the war in Russia and Ukraine. And it's like, oh, so the German nation that is part of NATO decided to couple itself to cheap Russian gas. Well, that decision is going to bite me in the ass, won't it? And it turns out it did. Again, if you understand a little bit of economics, turning out the television is like watching a horror show. And now I see that Israel and Iran are going at it. And I'm like, how much more can I take, though? Like, there is, you know, just so much that you can tax, so much that you can lower the living conditions until we're going to get to the era of Eastern Europe before the 90s. But apparently, for the first time ever, there is a gentleman that gave me hope. Hope that things would be different. You see, in the previous context, when Donald Trump was running his first presidency, he often did this showmanship, where it looks like he's intervening, but in reality, he is actually bringing a ceasefire. So the first time he did it was with Syria. I don't know how many of you remember the first Trump presidency, but a similar situation happened. All of a sudden, the mainstream media is saying that Syria has gassed its civilians. Like, things were dying down, Bashar al-Assad was winning, and unprovoked and for no reason whatsoever, he decided that he's going to do the only thing that would bring the Americans to his doorsteps, which is to use chemical attacks against civilians, right? And CNN was all about it, you know, white helmets everywhere, social media was like, oh, goodness gracious. And so Trump was caught in a difficult position. On one hand, his base was demanding that he doesn't intervene because his entire campaign was on American non-intervention. But all of his advisors, all of the GOP, all of the rhinos, all of the higher-ups and all the establishment was demanding that he does do something. And so what Trump did was he got the coalition of the willing, he got the United Kingdom, he got France, went with massive ships all the way into Syria and bombed an airfield. And then he said, mission accomplished, we devastated the land, and then he went back, right? So it was a showmanship. It's like, okay, a display of force for the televisions, for the politicians to see that America did do something. And then nothing happened. And there were other interviews where he describes this similar tactic, where he went into I think it was also a Middle Eastern conflict with Iran. It was quite similar. Like the Iranians called him and told him, it's like, look, we got hit, we got to hit back. Because that's how things work in the Middle East with these authoritarian regimes. Like they need to show a display of force in order to show the populace that they're keeping them safe. Because otherwise, if the populations viewed the government as weak, they rebel. Right? Like that's how authoritarian governments work. Like the people need to be afraid of you. And the people aren't afraid of you if you're being viewed as weak. So the Iranian government called the United States. They said, look, we want to target this military base. Like, can you please evacuate all the soldiers? Trump did. And then the Iranian government launched a symbolic attack. And so that's how things worked under his first presidency. And I think he tried the same thing now. You saw Israel and Iran going at it. Tensions were building. Situation is out of control. So America sends a bomber, which launches some bunker buster bombs into Iran, and then says mission accomplished, right? Because, like, what is the source of the conflict? The source of the conflict is that allegedly Iran is building nuclear weapons. Well, Trump just sent a bomber over there and said, like, we destroyed that entire nuclear capability. So now you don't have any casus belli, right? Like, if the United States is saying we did this, what else can you say? It's like, is their intelligence not good? Like, of course it is, obviously. You know, it's an official U.S. government statement. Like, we destroyed their nuclear capability. And then I see Trump posting this. Congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now. This is going to be officially calling an end to the 12-day war. And the entire world will salute this. During each ceasefire, the other sides will remain peaceful and respectful. On the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will. I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage, and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East, but it didn't, and never will. God bless Israel, God bless Iran, God bless the Middle East, God bless the United States of America, and God bless the world. Well, unfortunately, it seems that God has ran out of blessings. Either that or Trump was too greedy, asked for too many. You know, he went out of clerical spells. He tried blessing everything, and then when it came to blessing the world, ran out. So what is happening here, right? I think that you can successfully manage a ceasefire if the two sides of the conflict don't really want to fight. For people that understand geopolitics and they move past ideology and actually see how the world works, you would know that sometimes nation states aren't really interested in a conflict. They're interested in saber rattling. Why? Because it raises their polling at home. Even if it's an authoritarian regime, it doesn't matter, right? Like, the people respect strong leaders, and they want to see that their leaders are saber-rattling. So, for instance, when North Korea threatens to nuke the United States, they don't really want to nuke the United States. They don't really want to get into an existential conflict that would wipe them off the map. But it sounds good as propaganda. It sounds good. And from an international perspective, like some people, like China, for instance, maybe they want a country that's like a mad dog. Right, like the Joker. They have the Joker up their sleeve. And so that's why they do it. But they don't actually want a conflict to happen. However, sometimes things escalate. Like, for instance, between India and Pakistan. Like, I don't think they actually want a war there. I don't think they actually want a conflict. But, like, one thing leads to another. And as I mentioned before, in an international situation, posturing and being seen as a strong politician is very important. And you can't allow the other side to do something without retaliating. And when you retaliate, the other side can't allow it to stand, and they have to retaliate, right? So that's when Trump comes in, and he's basically saying, all right, what are you fighting over? Iran's enrichment program. Okay, I destroyed it. That's it. Conflict over. Go home. Unfortunately, however, that only works if the two sides don't want to fight. But what happens when the sides want to fight? Well, you get the same thing that you got in Russia and Ukraine. If both of the sides think that they can secure enough resources and keep it going, they're not interested in a ceasefire. You know, like, it's one thing that they go in front of the cameras and they talk and they say, yes, we're interested. But, like, if their generals and their intelligence agencies say, like, look, if we keep it up, we're going to eventually win or we're going to get a better deal, then it's one thing they say in front of the camera. It's another thing that they talk behind closed doors. This is another situation. I think that in the Middle East, the grievances between Israel and Iran have bubbled up for decades. And you may end up in a situation where both sides actually want to have the conflict. And this is very unfortunate because, as Trump said, you know, God bless the Middle East, God bless the world, because this conflict would have been devastating for the Middle East. And I still think that not just for the Middle East, but like the cost of living. We're talking about a conflict that's very close to one of the most important shipping lanes on earth. And the Americans say it's like, yeah, we can guard it. Yeah, but it costs manpower. And not to mention, like, you're talking about commercial ships. Like, the commercial ships don't want to go into a place where they know it's a minefield. Or there's like GPS blockage or other things, right? And so even like the small insecurities are going to rise the price, because now you have insurance companies and they're going to be like, well, okay, the Americans are defending the strait, but there's mines over there, you know, what if something bad happens? Insurance price goes up, oil price goes up, right? So, like, again, even if you think it doesn't affect you, no matter where you are, this conflict definitely does. And it would be great if a ceasefire was actually enacted. However, right now, I don't think it will. Like, the situation looks like the two sides, they want to fight really badly, and it's going to affect geopolitics. It's going to affect the entire world, especially when you see that a lot of politicians are placed in a difficult position. Because I think that the politicians themselves, many of them, probably don't want this conflict to happen. On camera, in front of the public, they act like they do, because that's where the lobbying comes from, that's where the money comes in. But they're also noticing that the people, the voter, are starting to be against the conflict. People on the left and people on the right, like bipartisans, especially in the United States, they want this conflict to stop. And so if you're a politician, sure, you know, you get a lot of money from backers, you get a lot of good press and publicity from the journalists if you say the correct things. But at the end of the day, you're still a person that makes money from having office. You still need that seat. And what happens if that seat is jeopardized because the public isn't going to vote for you again because you look like a warmonger? So I think, like, even the politicians, they want this to stop. Behind closed doors. In front of the cameras, yes, absolutely. They're like, oh, we need to support Israel. And it's like, it's unthinkable to think otherwise. We need to intervene. But if you ran your platform on a MAGA, on a non-interventional platform, I mean, this is toxic. So we'll see what happens. I think there is pressure from the United States for this thing to find a resolution. Trump did give them a win, but unfortunately, Iran did launch missiles after the ceasefire, claiming that no formal agreement was signed. And that begs the question, well, why wasn't there a formal agreement signed? There should have been a formal agreement signed, so they don't have a reason to back out, right? So they don't have a reason to... But again, it's very difficult to make any type of agreements if the two parties, they want to keep going at it. Hopefully, as I mentioned before, they will find some wisdom and some common sense because, yeah, this probably won't lead to World War III, but the conflict in the Middle East, especially if it expands, it's going to be really bad for most of us. Like, the cost of living is going to astronomically go high, and on top of that, you also have the humanitarian aspect, right? Like, you're going to have refugees from the area, you're going to have... You know, like you guys saw what happened with the refugee crisis the last time there was a major conflict in the Middle East, right? Let me know what you guys think, though. And as usual, I will see you in my live stream. Take care.